Russ Kickle, and on this episode of American Reef, we're going to take a look at some of the Tunze products that were released at InterZoo 2016. So I don't know about you, but for me, I get really excited when a product that I consider to be really great gets re-engineered to be kind of like off the charts and super great, right? And I believe one of the products that we're going to talk about today, the Tunze Stream 3, kind of falls into that category. And one of the reasons why I believe it's going to be kind of super great is just because Tunze, the company themselves, are kind of standing behind that product. Meaning that normally when you have a stream pump or a circulating pump in a tank, normally you get a year warranty on that, right? And after a year things break. Well, Tunze already takes their circulating pumps and gives them a 2-year warranty. Well, with this new Stream 3, they're actually giving it a 5-year. So that tells me right there, again, they're going to stand behind this product and they have faith in what they came up with. So to me, that's why I make that statement is that's pretty cool, and that means that this new Stream 3 has probably got some really cool technology in it, so that it allows them to make that statement and kind of to back it up. Now, you know, for me, the problem that solves is we know that most pumps, for example, that you put in a tank because of saltwater conditions, etc., you know, the reliability on them isn't the best, meaning that within a year to 2 years, they start to break, right? And so with this new re-engineered kind of design, when you look at it, I think what's going to happen with that is we're going to see a couple issues being solved with this new re-engineered product. One of them is going to be that maintenance / reliability. The other one is actually going to be, again, the sound level, etc. And again, rather than me kind of talk about it, I'd rather you know, talk about the facts with Roger Vitko from Tunze USA. Now, before we go see Roger, again, if you're new to reef keeping and you want more reef keeping videos on how to keep a saltwater tank or a reef keeping video, you can head on over to AmericanReef.com, and down there I've basically got 3 channels that will give you various access to various kind of videos, whether they be product oriented or kind of advanced aquarist oriented to hear how people kind of maintain their systems, or just general kind of reef tutor category, which meaning, you know, all the basics from the beginning to end kind of thing. And then lastly, again, if you're looking for what I consider one of the best fish foods on the planet, you can head on over to AmericanReefHPD.com. You can also get it from AmericanReef.com. There's a link to go over to basically that kind of store that I created. But if not, you can do a direct link at AmericanReefHPD.com. No spaces, anything like that. So again, let's head on over and talk to Roger Vitko about the new products from InterZoo 2016. Roger, thank you again, sir.
No problem. Thanks for having me, Russ.
Man, I love our chats because I always come away learning something new. And today, what I hope to learn is all the stuff from InterZoo, right? Since, you know, I couldn't be there anyway. You know, there was all kind of buzz about kind of like the direction of, you know, some of the product lines of where you're going. And I was hoping you can kind of fill us in and tell us what's going on.
Yeah, well, it was another big year for us. You know, I think at the base, you know, we have a really good development team, especially now that Felix Tunze is Axel's oldest son, and he just graduated with his engineering degree. And the Stream 3 was actually his project. And his dream, you know, throughout the whole time he was in engineering school, it was like, you know, I'm going to make a magnetic levitation pump. And, you know, we'd always be, well, why is that so important? He's like, because it'll have no noise. You know, there won't be any parts wearing out. You'll just have this magnet just floating there. And he pulled it off. But, I mean, I know for at least 2 years, I would talk to him. He's like, yeah, I got this prototype. I got it working. You know, he would get so amped about it. And it really shows. I mean, he basically wants to it's going to have a 5-year warranty, and everything's just state of the art. And then but you can see his excitement with, he wants to have in the manual, he'll sign it, and everyone who builds it will sign it. And I'm eager to see how that all plays out. They should be out in September. So
That's awesome when you think about it, right? Especially for him, right? Because growing up in that environment and again, taking basically that education and applying it even further is kind of a cool thing, right?
yeah, that's his dad's always telling me. He said, engineering school is interesting because a lot of topics that you need for building pumps and that are glossed over in a day. He's like, he remembers studying magnetism, and it was like, one chapter in the book.
Right.
And he's basically had to teach himself everything and read in his spare time to learn everything. He's like, if I would have left college knowing what I know now, I would have been so much further ahead. So,
Okay, so even for his son, it's the same kind of thing?
yeah, he said, he kind of went into it knowing, hey, this is the way the technology is moving. So he focused a lot more on magnets.
Right.
And studied, magnetic levitation vehicles and everything, knowing that this was something he wanted to do. So
Got it. So even before the class is there, he already hit it, and then
yeah,
that's cool. Okay, so he always wanted to build that. That's the kind of the foundation of the Stream 3.
yeah.
Give me the top benefits of the Stream 3 besides again the no noise kind of piece of it.
I mean, the silence was the main aspect that we were going for. The other was durability, just not having a shaft or wearing surfaces other than a really high-tech plastic bearing at the bottom and a zirconium oxide ball. That it's just that these things won't wear out. And then on top of that, it does have a very good flow rate and energy efficiency. And, I think he built in some neat features with the diagnostic indicator lights and a countdown timer for how long it's been running. I think that the overall concept really works well.
Okay, so now on the kind of like the durability, how like on the last show that we did, we were talking about you having to every 6 months or so take vinegar,
Sure.
like that. Does that affect again? Basically, this new pump still need the same kind of maintenance there, or does that kind of extend that a little bit?
It should extend it. It's actually pretty neat because at the bottom of the pump is a little grate, and it's actually pulling water almost like a jet engine would from the bottom, even though the majority of it that's actually becoming flow is coming through that intake cage at the front. There's a substantial amount, roughly 100 gallons an hour, going from the bottom over the impeller, over the motor, cooling everything. And so that should make a huge difference. They've done some accelerated testing. We don't have the sort of time span to
Right.
hey, we're going to test run this for 3 years. So
Right.
the test run is they set up a tank that's pretty much a saturated Kalkwasser solution, put the pump in there, say this is what the other pumps did, this is what our competitor's pump did, this is what this pump does.
Right.
And so they're still in the middle of those sorts of accelerated wear tests, they call them. So
So that'll be perfect. Our next show that you and I talk, that's what we'll kind of hit because you figure if it hits the streets, September, whatever.
yeah,
Right.
be in September.
Right. We'll have a general feel maybe by then. And we can kind of talk about that.
Yeah.
Okay. So we look at it, and you said it's going to be around September. Should be durable. You said 5-year kind of again.
5-year warranty.
To me, that's ludicrous, right? I'm like,
Yeah.
I love the 2-year, traditional. I always thought that was awesome. So tell me why the 5 years? They just that much confidence that this.
That's it. Felix has a lot of confidence in what he's developed, and on top of that, he feels that there should be an additional burden on the. When we have something that comes up short, he's like, if you're that sure of yourself, and the staff needs to know, hey, no screw ups, buckle down, and so it's more just a thing to say, hey, his words to me is that there's too much banana engineering in the aquarium industry, and I had to ask him what that meant. He says, well, you ship out the bananas green and they ripen at the customer. He's like, you can't be doing that. You need to ship a product that's 100% ready to go, proven, and that you've done your legwork. So,
amen. Right. Again, to me, that's awesome. I love the fact that you put your money where your mouth is, so to speak. Right. So that's a cool thing. Now, how many flow? What's the kind of
so it's got a huge range. You can turn it down to 5% of power and all the way up to 100%. At 100, it's going to be just shy of 4,000 gallons an hour. I think it's 3990, and 5% is about 750 gallons an hour. So,
and what's the footprint for it?
It's it's a longer pump than conventional. But the nice thing is you can turn it sideways, and the flow is so wide that you can really completely hide it behind the rock.
Right.
But it's roughly 7 inches long, I believe, and then it's about 3 inches in diameter.
Okay, but still, and pushing out 4,000, and again, if you got that 5 years behind it. So okay, as far as products go, Stream 3, we know that's there, right?
Yep.
Was that the only kind of baby from Felix, so to speak, or
yeah, the other one they hired on a new electrical engineer, and his baby was the 7000, the Smart Controller 7000, and that was an idea that we'd been toying with for years, was having some sort of all-in-one controller, but we just didn't have the smarts. A lot of our engineers are beginning of computer age people, even myself. We learned on an Apple II, and once we got the basics, okay, we're good, and we understand maybe the basics of electronic circuitry, but not modern, digital bus systems and all that. And so getting a guy that was a classmate of Felix's, and actually his engineering background seems to mainly be like the way automotive computer systems work. Mm-hmm. And so this was right up his alley, and he really, I think, knocked it out of the park. I mean, it's a very basic controller because we wanted to have a good entry price point, but it does pH, temperature, runs 4 pumps, can run 4 LED lights. Right now, it'll just run our LED lights, but we are in talks with other manufacturers. The capacity is there to run other brands of lights. And I think the main thing he did better than anything else on the market is a very simple interface that's just drag and drop and click windows and icons, and not a programming language. Anybody can do it.
Right. Okay, and there's only one model of that unit, right?
There's one model. Out of the box, it'll control temperature. The cables for the pumps are there. There's additional branch connectors to attach LEDs and switch sockets. It can switch up to 4 devices off and on. It can switch a solenoid. But those are all optional parts, but they also are very reasonably priced. The switch, the controller will come in right around $340. Switch socket will be $70. Solenoid will be about $70. Adding a pH electrode, any BNC electrode will connect to it. So you can use ours or anyone on the market, one you may already have. So
right, yeah, and when you compare that to kind of that $800-ish entry point for a lot of the traditional ones that exist out there, right?
Yeah.
And now, what kind of warranty is going to be on this one?
That one's going to have the traditional 2-year warranty. Yeah, and we're kind of testing the waters on 5 years with the Stream 3. So.
Got it.
But it does. I will say that he did come up with something really nice, in that the controller has a full acrylic housing over it, and it's not totally watertight, but it is pretty heavily splash proofed. If you had it on the side of your tank and some water ran over it, it's not going to damage it. So,
is it more or less than kind of that osmolator in closing, or the same?
It's bigger. It's probably about a 5-inch square.
Okay.
And they did it in, it's about 1.5 inches thick. Well, about 1 inch thick, I would guess.
Sure.
Comes with a mounting bracket. It's white. They chose the white color, figuring most people are going to mount it on a white wall, so that hides it the best. So
sure. And now, as far as the probes, you said you're going to have those as well?
Yes, Temperature comes already on it.
Okay.
So.
So temperature comes on it, and then you said now as far as kind of the 2-year warranty, now is that going to be like when you have software updates, does that mean those updates are going to only come 2 years, or how is that going to work?
No, updates will come as, like before, there's a high probability that before it launches, it'll have the option to either do pH or redox. So if you wanted to do redox, you can do that. Mm-hmm. The updating system is also really simple. There's just, you're a Mac user. Most things are just, you drag this
right.
into your apps folder or whatever.
Right.
It's the same thing. There's a little box. You'll drag your update into it. Update gets done. So,
man, I can't wait, because for me, I just get so frustrated with all the other controllers that are out there, so to speak, and to me that interface, and a reliable interface at that, is just something that, man, I just think that, I know myself and Mike Paletta, right? That's half of our conversations, right? Complaining about one thing or another as it relates to controlling your tanks,
Well,
so that'll be a good thing when that comes. And same time frame, September-ish?
Yes, should be on target for September. I'd gotten an update just a couple of weeks ago that both projects seem to be on target, and we'll have some supply starting in September. Maybe by Magna they'll already be on store shelves. So
good deal. And now, from the controller aspect, are you expecting a kind of everybody jumping in on this thing, or do you kind of expect a slow ramp, meaning that everybody and their mother, so to speak, over the past, we'll say 3 months, I've seen new controllers coming out. Some, some got, again, various sources that didn't work and they were trying to make happen, or whatever you want to call it. But in general, where do you see this kind of going?
I mean, it's definitely, it's somewhat controversial because it's not as comprehensive as some of the other solutions on the market. Mm-hmm. But it also has almost everything you could possibly need. I mean, in terms of real need versus want, it's got that. It's got a very good price point, and on top of that, I think that the simplicity will sway a lot of people. That the competition is just a little too complicated for a lot of the average customers. So.
Yep, very much so.
I mean, if you're a tech nerd, it's probably going to come up short. Let's say it's Android versus iPhone. If you're one of those real tech guys and you want to customize your interface and do everything yourself and hack it, it's not for you.
Right.
But if you want to just have something you take home and it works out of the box, well, that's going to be what it does. So
perfect, right? Yeah, because to me that's my world, right? Simple is the best way to go. Now, as far as kind of simple things like alarms, how is the alarm system going to work there? As far as when something is, hey, I've spotted my temperature spike. How is that going to work?
Well, it does have, it has its own interface directly on the keypad. You can do everything right on the keypad, and it will give little notices on the display. As far as remote notifications, at this time, it doesn't have that. And the reason was that Emmanuel, the engineer that designed it, he's convinced that it's only a matter of time before he said, he actually showed me, he said, you can get on these black sites, you can find someone's Philips light, you can find any device that's connected to the internet, and you can manipulate it if you're so inclined and you're of a devious nature.
Right.
How long will it be before someone's aquarium I'm going to turn their temperature up to 100 and I'm going to overfill their tank? And he said, I don't want that to be on our product.
Right.
So by the end of the show, he'd kind of already figured out how he could do it with I'm not a real internet person, but it was a,
no, that's okay. You can be.
He'd found a software that he just needed a license, and then it would basically have a VPN.
Right.
And so then it would be secure, and you would be the only one to access it. And he said once he figured out licensing and all that, it adds some steps, so it's maybe not for everybody, but he would have something that was 100% secure.
Sure. Yeah, and it's funny because I think a lot of people take that for granted. In other words, they have this, that, and the other, but Yeah, there's no real security, and the people that say that they're secure, they don't prove things like they don't have whatever ISO and various kind of ITIL certifications that come back and prove that they are right. They just say, oh yeah, and to me that's
Well, that's what he said. He said, the other products on the market, okay, it's a password. It takes somebody a matter of minutes with a password generator to crack that. That's not security. So
right, exactly. It's that whole banana thing again. The banana engineering. Oh, it's
yeah,
banana security. So okay, so controller again, that's going to come in again at a base price. You said we'll say by the time you're said and done, probably around 450 with everything.
yeah. If you had a couple of switch sockets and extra cables or solenoid, that you'd probably be right about
There you
there.
go. And then you said that the lights, as far as controlling those, right now it's going to control only the Tunzes, but then in the future you'll be adding those on with your various.
Well, and you could switch your halides or any other light with just one of the switch sockets. But in terms of actually having a 0 to 10 volt interface with other LED lights, that's we're actually in talks with some other manufacturers, and it seems like that's going to happen. So
Sure, good deal. So yeah, if you got a traditional kind of, to your point, if you got sockets, you can control sockets. It doesn't matter.
yeah.
Okay, so the controller and the Stream 3, were those the two main kind of products?
Well, there was one other that I thought was big, and to me it was probably the coolest, even though it's a limited market, let's say, and not something people get super hyped about. But I thought the new calcium automat, our calcium reactor, was really cool. That was Claude, who's been with the company as long as I have, probably a couple of years more. So that's about 17 years now. He came up with this design, and what makes it really unique, if you've used any other calcium reactor on the market, they tend to really be a big pain in the butt. The drip line always clogs, and it's like every week you got to open it up, kind of purge it, close it back up to reset your drip rate. They're also really hard to prime. If some gas builds up at the top, breaks the prime of your pump, you're there forever trying to get it restarted. So he'd solved both of those problems. The solution for the drip rate was incredibly simple. It's just choke off the intake, and that'll set the drip rate. You're just taking in salt water, so the calcium's no higher, and it's not going to plug up. And he's been testing. He said for 6 months there was no change in the drip rate.
Right.
And then then otherwise he developed a system inside where it's self-priming because there's a negative pressure created by basically a vacuum created by the pump running. So as long as the hose is dropped in your sump, it's going to suck in water and fill itself.
Sure.
And all you have to do is get it filled up high enough to where the pump's submerged, and that's just a matter of sucking on the hose, getting the flow started, then you plug it in. And, we tested it quite a bit. I was amazed you could take the intake out and get a big air bubble in there, just unplug it, plug it back in, it starts sucking in water again. It really worked really well, and that's one of the things I'm personally excited about because I think it would be great to have one myself. So
Yeah, because to your point, after you kind of putsy with the traditional, calcium reactors, and then again you'll go through to your point, and you purge the line, and you try to get your drip right, and that doesn't go right, and then after finally 24 hours of doing it right, then something else happens, and then to your point, I purposely on two of my tanks just started dosing straight calc water, just because luckily I didn't need that kind of demand and I didn't need the aggravation. So
Yeah.
Everybody I talk to is kind of similar as well. Right?
Yeah, I hear more and more of that, just switching to a doser with two-part or Kalkwasser.
Yeah.
But my experience has been my best, most easy tanks were always calcium reactor and Kalkwasser, using the two together.
Yeah.
Really kept the pH rock solid, and everything was almost automated.
Right.
And if I could just get a calcium reactor that made all that simpler, that would be the ultimate setup, in my opinion.
Yeah, me too, right? Because again, for me, the reason why I did it is because I just didn't want to be messing around and was frustrated with the tinkering. And at the same time, though, to your point, the parameters aren't anywhere near as stable. I don't have the same kind of growth that I had because, that balance that you get of, again, that kind of decomposed, shells and things of that nature. It has all that other stuff, right? That just, again, it's just perfect, right? And, but again, to me, it's just, I'll take less growth, right? So to your point now, if we can kind of flip it without get rid of the aggravation and can kind of get that nice stable world, it'll be something we're looking forward to. And now you guys, you already had calcium reactors, right? So this was just kind of a modification.
Well, we had a very basic in-tank unit that was only good for up to about 150 gallons.
Okay.
And that one's been improved with the ideas from the bigger ones. The bigger ones are basically based on the 9410 skimmer body and the 9430 skimmer body.
Mm-hmm.
And they use a modified version of the 9410 pump, so it's a needle wheel, so it mixes the CO2 really so fine. The few bubbles of CO2 you're adding, you really don't see any bubbles inside the reactor. I mean, they're just pureed into, more or less forced into the water. There's nothing visible coming out of there.
Right. And so what's going to be the max tank size, so to speak, with
the biggest one is up to, I believe it's 800-gallon reef tank. So,
and then the smaller one?
Smaller one, I think, does about 400 gallons.
Good deal. And same time frame, or are they available now?
Those should also be in September, yes.
Okay. Good deal.
And other than that, there were a handful of other products. I think you've always been a fan of the mangrove box,
right? Huge.
Well, we finally have a new one, and it's basically a ceramic stone planter, and that'll be coming out in the fall. So,
okay, so describe that for me, because to your point, I love the red.
They call it the Delta rock, and it's kind of this D shape, like a curved triangle rock, two magnet holders on it, mounts up in the corner. You can put any plant, if you wanted to do it in freshwater, you could put a peace lily or an Amazon sword or any plant that'll grow immerse, or you could put a mangrove in there. And just a planter for your reef tank. So
and again, it's the same kind of thing. We're held on with the magnet, the same roughly.
Exactly, but instead of being a plastic box, it's a ceramic box that looks like a piece of live rock and kind of blends in.
Okay, so. And is it roughly the same footprint and size as that box?
A little bit smaller because it's more rounded and it's designed to fit in a corner.
Okay.
So it's mounts on two sides. So
sure. And is there any kind of manipulation with it at all? Or is it just literally you snap it in and, again?
Pretty much that's it. Snap it in, fill it with a substrate you want, put your plant in it, and go.
So I've already got different ideas probably because I know, I'm a big fan of the Miracle Mud, right? And so to me, just using that as a simple two-pronged approach, right, and get Miracle Mud in there, and have it look like a rock, or at least the initial source might be something that is at least worth trying, at least for on some of my system. So
yeah, that would be a good idea. I know I've tried Miracle Mud with mangrove before, and it seems to not. The mangroves seem to benefit from something a little lighter that the roots can go through. Otherwise, you kind of get some anaerobic things going on, and the plant doesn't do well. So
exactly. But to me, to slap that in there for that denitrification piece of it, as opposed to relying on, again, the mangroves or something else. Again, you can rely on the mud, and maybe that
because again, as long as you're keeping those, the solids off from sitting in top of it, that density. It's interesting, and it'll be something I'm definitely going to play with a little bit.
Well, yeah.
Go ahead after you, sir.
There's also there were two new models of Care Magnet. We came out with the Pico, which is basically up to a 1/4 inch glass, $11.50 cleaning magnet, so very good price point. And then the Strong Plus, which was just under $100 and for up to 1-inch glass. So starting to round out the Care Magnet line. Now there's 5 models. Those are actually in already. Those we have in stock now.
And now the Strong Plus, is it roughly the same size, or we're talking one?
It's identical to the Strong and Long in the footprint and shape and everything. It's just stronger magnets inside.
Okay. And
the Pico is smaller than the Nano, okay. And it's actually unique in that it's molded and ultrasonically welded, so it's not the same footprint or style of the others, and the blades aren't replaceable. It's just a one-piece unit. It actually was pretty cool. I built 50 of them at the factory, and that ultrasonic welder is pretty neat. So
okay, so for us idiots that don't know what an ultrasonic welder is, sounds like you're welding with sound, but what's
that's it. It's really neat. You have to wear earmuffs. It makes this god up. I can only describe it as like scraping a chalkboard, but like even so high frequency, like I'm sure a dog would start howling. But you put your piece in there, you put the cap on, then you put down this arm, and it presses it and puts out this very high frequency sound that basically melts and fuses the plastic together, but in such a way that it's completely welded. There's no bubbles, there's no gap. It just
right.
perfectly melts it together. and it's not the sort of thing that you see it happening. It's at the contact surface. It's right. Kind of like how microwaves work. It's penetrating in and getting where the seam is. So,
and so if you touch near there or anything like that as it's happening, no issues, right? Because
no, I've been told though that if you mess something up, you could break the ultrasound transmitter, and it would be a huge, expensive repair. So to not screw up, basically make sure the piece is in there before you push the button and go.
Yeah, that's funny. Spoken from the person who was footing the bills for.
Yeah.
So, one thing that I wanted to ask you before we kind of move along, I assumed everybody knew what InterZoo was, right? But if you can, why don't you give kind of just a brief, overview of what it is, when it is, and why it's important for basically kind of Tunze, for example, to show these products there.
There's probably 3 big aquarium shows in the world, and they're basically InterZoo, Aquarama, and SIPS. SIPS is in China, Aquarama is in Singapore, and it's more dedicated to the livestock end of things. And then InterZoo is probably the oldest one. It's in Nuremberg, Germany. It's every 2 years. And most of our product development cycles in a lot of companies are based around what are we going to show at InterZoo in 2 more years. So it's a huge show. I know it's been going on for probably at least 30 years. And it basically every company in the industry almost has a booth there and shows off. It's kind of the Detroit Auto Show of pet products. But it does encompass all pet products, so, the aquarium aspect of it. And also they do farm and ranch stuff. So you've got people showing saddles, you got people showing the latest dog treat, all that's there. But the whole show probably encompasses about 9 football fields. It would take you, it's a 4-day show, and if you were a distributor
yep.
of all pet products and you wanted to walk that whole show, it'd probably take you all 4 days. The guide to all the booths looks like a small town phone book. I mean, there's just pages and pages of this booth's on this row, and it's really some show.
Yeah, I know. As far as I can remember, Tunze has always been part of that show. And,
Yeah.
And that show's always been around as far as I've ever been in the hobby, kind of thing. So.
Yeah, it's a very important show for the industry, and just like I said, it's kind of the Detroit Auto Show. Everyone wants to have their new stuff, at least a prototype ready to show. Sometimes things that are shown don't even make it into production, but it's also some companies will use it to gauge reaction. I know we've even done that. We once had a magnet cleaner for 3-inch thick glass. Mm-hmm. And as soon as we got back from the show, we were playing with it, and Mr. Tunze got it caught on his hand. And we were like, I thought this might be too dangerous to sell. I don't think we should make this. So.
Exactly. And so, and with that being said, so it's every 2 years. And again, I remember it always being spring-ish time frame, like late spring. Right?
Yeah. It's almost always an April, May time period. So.
And now, okay, as far as kind of in the U.S., if somebody wants to take and see these, again, the new things that were released at InterZoo, or at least shown at InterZoo, what kind of options are they going to have there?
Well, I will be at MACNA, and I plan to have all the new products on display at MACNA. But, MACNA is, I would say, our biggest show in the U.S., and so that'll be where we do that.
Sure.
First display.
Yep.
And the nice thing about MACNA is around that same time, a lot of the products will be available already. And we do plan to work with Aquatic Warehouse in San Diego. So if the products are actually shipping for sale at that point, hoping to stock them up so you can just go down to their store and leave with the products. So
let's knock on wood or some version there of it, right? That works good. And again, I don't want to chew up too much of your time today. But before we kind of sign off, I would say that I know we'll probably end up, like everything, Mike will end up, wanting to put these on that new Elos tank that he got.
Sure.
And the other. So we'll probably kind of demo them there and kind of do that kind of stuff. But like between now and then, any kind of message, comment that you've got for kind of like the viewers of AmericanReef?
Well, I mean, more than anything, it's, as much as we finished for the show, it's like a quarter of what we were working on.
Right.
So I would just mainly say keep watching, and I think we hope to complete all these products in September, start on the next batch, and have another batch ready right around Christmas, beginning of next year. But we really have a lot of new ideas we're working on. So, basically the creative juices are really flowing at the company right now. We've got a really good staff, and I think that it's the exciting part's just getting started. So
good. Well, that's good. So that means that what we'll do again in another 2-3 months kind of time frame, we'll do another one of these videos, and hopefully by then we'll have something to kind of talk a little bit more about. And
maybe by then you'll actually have samples you can play with and show off with Mike. So that'll be fun.
Sounds good. And on that note, again, thank you very much, sir. Appreciate the time.
All right. Thank you, Russ.